This last video will be reviewing square root method. When it comes to square root method, you'll know you can use square root method if you only see one variable in your problem. So we have just the y squared, just the x squared, just a w here. Sorry, just another w right there. You'll notice on these other ones I've got multiple, so like x and x. That's why I know I'll have to do the factoring method if you have multiple variables in the problem. So on all of these, we just have one. These ones don't take as long, so it's nice. So what we do, let's go to this first one. I'm going to zoom in. First thing you do is you get the variable by itself. So in this problem, I'm going to add 32 to both sides so that the y squared is all alone. So I have y squared, those cancel, equals 39. Once you've got it by itself, you're going to go ahead and get rid of the square by taking the square root on both sides. Just remember, when you do a square root, you have two answers. You have a positive and a negative answer. The square and square root cancel each other out. So we're left with y equals, and then you type this into a calculator. Now in this problem, if you type square root of 39 into the calculator, you get just plain old square root of 39. Now remember, there's two answers. There's positive and negative square root of 39. So I'm going to also put an answer of the negative square root of 39, and then you're done. Let's go ahead and do the next example. So that was our first one. Let's jump over here. Same idea. So I'm going to get the x squared by itself. First thing I'm going to do is add 184 to both sides. So I have 5x squared, those cancel, equals 180. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 5 so that I get the x squared completely by itself. So I have x squared equals, and then 180 divided by 5 is 36. And then we get rid of the square at this point. So we get rid of a square by taking the square root of both sides. Remember, you have two answers, a positive and a negative answer. So that cancels. So go to the calculator at this point. You're going to type in square root of 36. When you type in square root of 36 this time, it gives you just an answer without a square root. So you get an answer of 6. But just remember, you have two answers. You have one with a positive, one with a negative. So it's positive 6 and negative 6. Okay, last two examples. For this one, we have parentheses, and that's okay. It looks a little harder. It's not as hard as it looks. So first thing you're going to do is get the parentheses on its own. So we've got the w minus 3 squared. We subtract the 4. So all that's equal to just 5. Now we're going to get rid of the square and the parentheses by doing the square root. And we have to do it on both sides. And on the other side, we'll have two answers, positive and negative answer. So I've got w minus 3. And then we've got this square root of 5. When you put that in the calculator, it stays square root of 5. So you still have the square root on it. Now I'm going to write this one a little different. I'm going to put the plus or minus right here in front. So remember, there's two answers, a positive and a negative. Just remember, you're going to add that 3, and if you recall, that 3 just goes in front of the square root. So what I mean by that is you'd write 3 and then plus square root of 5 for one of the answers. And then the other answer, you'd write 3 and then a minus square root of 5. And I wrote them like this so that you can see they're almost identical. The only difference is you just put a plus or a minus sign between the two numbers. Okay, one last question I want to cover. Okay, for this problem, I'm going to go ahead and add 7 to both sides. So that gives me w minus 3 squared equals 15. And then you'll go ahead and take the square root. That gets rid of the square. So we've got w minus 3. Oh, and I forgot. Don't forget that you have two answers, a positive and a negative answer. So back to this, we've got w minus 3 is equal to a positive and a negative square root of 15. At this point, I'll go ahead and add 3. And one last thing I wanted to mention is the calculator, if you type this in, it just gives you square root of 15, so nothing changes. So on our final answer, we'd write this as w is 3 plus the square root of 15. And then the other one would be 3 minus the square root of 15.